Imagine a world where something used every day could land you in prison for life. Welcome to the war on drugs. We'll dive into what the war on drugs is, how it started, and what some of the greatest philosophers might think about it.
The war on drugs of the Duterte administration in 2016 proved up until now to be a highly controversial and violent campaign aimed at eradicating illegal drugs in the country, with the former president primarily focusing on eradicating those with drug involvements. He insisted the campaign to be implemented by the police immediately. This action led to widespread criticism for alleged extrajudicial killings where individuals were killed without due process. There were also accusations of police misconduct, including the planting of evidence and targeting. Official police counts published under the Duterte administration reported 6,252 deaths, while human rights groups cited by the ICC estimated closer to 30,000 deaths. The International Criminal Court has launched an investigation into the alleged crimes against humanity committed during the drug war. The effect of this campaign led to the distrust in law enforcement, burned fear and distrust to the political landscape of the country.
Aside from the Philippines, there are also other countries who declared war on drugs, just like the President of the United States during the 1971, President Richard Nixon. He declared that the abuse of drugs are the public enemy number one. He also increased the federal funding for drug control and drug treatment and established the Drug Enforcement Administration in 1973. The campaign was a relatively small component of federal law enforcement efforts until the presidency of Ronald Reagan in the 1980s. He emphasized criminal punishment over treatment that led to a sharp rise in incarcerations for the nonviolent drug offenses.
The war on drugs began in the early 1900s when the US passed down laws like the Harrison-Negrete Acts to control substances like opium and cocaine, often fueled by racial fears. In 1971, President Nixon officially declared drug abuse public enemy number one, creating the DEA to enforce harsh drug laws. The campaign intensified in the 1980s under President Reagan, with zero-tolerance policies and mandatory minimum sentences that disproportionately affected minority communities. Globally, the US pressured countries like Colombia to crack down on drug production. In the Philippines, President Rodrigo Duterte launched a brutal attack anti-drug campaign in 2016, and it resulted in thousands of deaths, many without trial and sparking international investigations into human rights violations. Today, critics argue that the war on drugs has caused more harm than good, leading to mass imprisonment, violence, and systematic injustice. Now, let's talk about what some of history's greatest philosophers might think about it.
Aristotle, known for virtue ethics, would likely criticize the war on drugs for its harsh punitive approach. His philosophy Nirvana or human flourishing achieve truth, balanced character instead of extreme punishments or unchecked use. Aristotle would seek a golden mean. Truth middle grounds, he would stress periphrases or factual wisdoms, promoting revelations and educations over blanket evasions. The current approach, with this corporates punishment like contradicts his vision of just society. Aristotle would prioritize both individual growth and societal well-being, aiming for lasting virtue rather than fear-driven control.
What would Thomas Aquinas think of the war on drugs? Let's break it down. Aquinas believed laws must follow natural law. They should guide people toward virtue and the common good. But the war on drugs, harsh punishments, racial disparities, and broken communities, that is not justice, that is power misuse. Addiction Aquinas would see it as a weakness of reason, needing help, not prison. Virtue grows through healing, not punishment. Bottom line, he'd call the war on drugs unjust, unvirtuous, and harmful to society.
Immanuel Kant's philosophy focuses on duty, moral law, and respecting human dignity. From Kant's view, drug use could be seen as morally wrong because it damages a person's rationality, which he believed was essential to moral action. He might support laws that discourages self-destructive behavior as long as they are based on universal principles. However, Kant would strongly oppose to any part of the war on drugs that treats people merely as tools for political agendas, such as using harsh punishments to control certain communities. In Kant's framework, justice must always respect the dignity and autonomy of every individual, even when addressing crime.
John Locke philosophy, emphasizing natural rights and limited government, provides a critical perspective on the war on drugs. His core belief in individual liberty suggests skepticism toward broad state, comprehension, and personal drug use, viewing it as a potential infringement on fundamental freedom, unless direct harm to others is evident. Locke's concept of government as primary a protector of rights would question whether the extensive reach and method of the war on drugs.
From a Haitian perspective, the war on drugs can be seen as a necessary effort by the sovereign to maintain order and prevent societal collapse. Thomas Hobbes believed that without strong central authority, human life would be solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. In this view, drug use and trafficking threaten social stability by fostering crime and weakening moral order. Therefore, the strict laws and enforcement are justified as part of the sovereign's duty to protect the citizen and preserve peace in the Commonwealth.
The war on drugs can be viewed through the lens of Bentham and Mill utilitarian ethics. Bentham act utilitarianism judged by action their ability to produce pleasure and reduce pain. If the war on drugs leads to more suffering such as mass incarceration or violence, he would likely to see at least morally wrong. Mill, on the other hand, focused on the higher pleasure and individual liberty. He would likely to criticize the war on drugs for suppressing personal freedom and failure to promote long-term well-being. Both thinkers would likely to oppose if it is cause more harm than good.